"Whose daughter are you?" he asked. "And please tell me, would your father have any room to put us up for the night?" That would be the entourage plus the camels. "I am the daughter of Bethuel," she replied. "My grandparents are Nahor and Milcah. Yes, we have plenty of straw and feed for the camels, and we have room for guests." The man bowed low and worshiped the Lord. "Praise the Lord, the God of my master Abraham," he said. "The Lord has shown unfailing love and faithfulness to my master, for he has led me straight to my master's relatives." The young woman ran home to tell her family everything that had happened. Now Rebekah had a brother named Laban, who ran out to meet the man at the spring. He had seen the nose ring and the bracelets on his sister's wrists, and he had heard Rebekah tell what the man had said. So he rushed out to the spring where the man was still standing behind his camels. Laban said to him, "Come and stay with us, you who are blessed by the Lord. Why are you standing here outside the town when I have a room ready for you and a place prepared for the camels?" So the man went home with Laban, and Laban unloaded the camels and gave him straw for their bedding, fed them, and provided water for the man and the camel drivers to wash their feet. Then food was served, but Abraham's servants said, "I don't want to eat until I have told you why I have come." So he has seen blessing after blessing after blessing unfold. God has answered his prayers and then some. He found the exact tribe and people that Abraham had come to and found out that this was his brother and that this would be his. What relationship would Abraham have to her? Grandniece? Great niece? I never was good at that stuff. Okay. All right, Laban said, "Tell us." "I am Abraham's servant," he explained, "and the Lord has greatly blessed my master. He has become a wealthy man. The Lord has given him flocks of sheep and goats, herds of cattle, a fortune in silver and gold, and many male and female servants and camels and donkeys. When Sarah, my master's wife, was very old, she gave birth to my master's son, and my master has given him everything he owns. And my master made me take an oath. He said, 'Do not allow my son to marry one of these local Canaanite women. Go instead to my father's house, to my relatives, and find a wife there for my son.' But I said to my master, 'What if I can't find a young woman who is willing to come back with me?' He responded, 'The Lord in whose presence I have lived will send his angel with you and will make your mission successful. Yes, you must find a wife for my son among my relatives, from my father's family. Then you will have fulfilled your obligation. But if you go to my relatives and they refuse to let her go with you, you will be free from my oath.'" So you see here that God is behind every detail in this story. This is an accident. God knows everything that's about to go down here. You also see that God has amazingly blessed Abraham, who in turn then falls to Isaac, who's amazingly blessed. So Rebekah, if she goes, will be very well cared for. It's not like you're pushing her out. She's going to, wander around like a gypsy the whole rest of her life. She's got a place, she's got a people, and she's got resources. So today, when I came to the spring, I prayed this prayer: "O God of my master, Abraham, please give me success on this mission. See, I'm standing here beside this spring. This is my request. When a young woman comes to draw water, I will say to her, 'Please give me a little drink of water from your jug.' If she says, 'Yes, have a drink,' and I will draw water for your camels too, let her be the one you have selected to be the wife of my master's son." Before I had finished praying in my heart, I saw Rebecca coming out with her water jug on her shoulder. She went down to the spring and drew water. So I said to her, please give me a drink. She quickly lowered her jug from her shoulder and said, yes, have a drink, and I will water your camels too. So I drank, and she watered the camels. Again, if you remember what she did, that was huge, what she did, which her family, I think, would immediately recognize. When I asked, whose daughter are you? She replied, I am the daughter of Bethuel, and my grandparents are Nahor and Milcah. So I put the ring on her nose and the bracelet on her wrists. Then I bowed low and worshiped the Lord. I praised the Lord, the God of my master, Abraham, because he had led me straight to my master's niece to be his son's wife. So tell me, will you or won't you show unfailing love and faithfulness to my master? Please tell me yes or no, and then I'll know what to do next. He just lays it right out there, doesn't he? But notice how this whole story is wrapped up in the blessing of God and the faith in God. Then Laban said to Bethuel, Laban and Bethuel replied, the Lord has obviously brought you here, so there is nothing we can say. Here is Rebekah, take her and go. Yes, let her be the wife to your master's son, as the Lord had directed. As a daughter, dad with a daughter, that's amazing. I wanted to do dental records and background checks and get the FBI involved in anyone who saw my daughter. That's just how I was. And they're willing to go on this story of faith. It's striking. When Abraham's servant heard their answer, he bowed down to the ground and worshiped the Lord. See, he recognizes where this all came from. Then he brought out silver and gold jewelry and clothing and presented them to Rebekah. He also gave expensive presents to her brother and mother. Then they ate their meal, and the servant and the men with him stayed there overnight. So she's leaving as a princess, if you think about it, with all these gifts. But early the next morning, Abraham's servant said, send me back to my master. But we want Rebekah to stay with us at least 10 days, her brother and mother said. Then she can go. But he said, don't delay me. The Lord has made my mission successful. Now send me back so I can return to my master. Well, they said, we'll call Rebekah and ask her what she thinks. So they called Rebekah. Are you willing to go with this man? They asked her. You pause here for a second. There are people who believe that the Old Testament is so overly patriarchal that women didn't have a say in anything. But look what Laban does. He leaves it to her. She's seen and heard all these blessings around here, but I think it's cool that they turned to it. Now, was it a very patriarchal society? Yes, it was. But that didn't mean that women were devalued or seen as less than. As you see this family, a family of faith, brings her into the decision. If you watch the ministry of Jesus and compare that to the ministry of the Pharisees and Sadducees, they continually devalued women and Jesus continued to lift them up. Do you know who the first person outside of the disciples in Jesus' family who heard that he was the Savior that came to save the world?
Woman at the well.
Samaritan woman at the well. The one who had many husbands and was living with a guy. That girl. Which to me is a sign that Jesus is saying, there's nobody outside of my ability to love and forgive. And that's the first person outside of the immediate family and disciples who he reveals himself as the Savior of the world. And then notice on the cross, one of the 7 words that Jesus speaks from the cross is about his mom. He talks to John and he talks to his mom to make sure that she's taken care of. Because she was a widow, we believe, at that time. Who's going to take care of her with her son gone, her firstborn? I just didn't want to bypass that without at least pointing that out, because there are so many ladies in the room. But notice the affirmation that they lift her up. And are you willing to go with this man? They ask her. And she replied, yes, I will go. So they said goodbye to Rebekah and sent her away with Abraham's servant and his men. The woman who had been Rebekah's childhood nurse went along with her. They gave her this blessing as she parted. Our sister, may you become the mother of many millions. May your descendants be strong and conquer the cities of their enemies. Notice how they invoke the promise that God gave to Abraham that it would continue through Rebekah. How did they know? I did not say that to my daughter when she left with her new husband. I gave him a blessing, but not that she'd be the mother of many millions. Although as a grandpa, that would be cool, till birthdays come. So Rebekah and her servant girls, notice the plural, mounted the camels and followed the man. So Abraham's servant took Rebekah and went on his way. Meanwhile, Isaac, whose home was in the Negev, or in the desert, had returned from Beer Lahai Roy. One evening he was walking and meditating in the fields. He looked up and saw the camels coming. So notice this meditating would be a form of prayer. That's what he's doing out in the field. So you get a glimpse into his character. We've not heard much from him yet. When Rebekah looked up and saw Isaac, she quickly dismounted from her camel. Who is that man walking through the fields to meet us? She asked the servant. And he replied, it is my master. So Rebekah covered her face with her veil, and the servant told Isaac everything he had done. And Isaac brought Rebekah into his mother Sarah's tent, and she became his wife. He loved her deeply, and she was a special comfort to him after the death of his mother. Any comments or questions here? We don't know how long a courtship this was. If it happened immediately, I don't know. But since I think they both recognized, God's leading this whole thing, well, let's go. Let's get married. Now, in the Old Testament wedding service, this would have been at least a 3-day affair, if not longer. So they would have had some time to get to know each other, but not a lot. Okay. Any questions? Abraham married another wife whose name was Keturah. She gave birth to Zimran, Josham, Midian, Ishbak, and Shuha. Joskin was the father of Sheba and Dedan. Dedan's descendants were the Asherites, the Tushites, the Lemuelites. Midian's sons were Epher, Hanok, Abida, and Eldah. These were all descendants of Abraham through Keturah. Abraham gave everything he owned to his son Isaac. Before he died, he gave gifts to the sons of his concubines, and sent them off to a land to the east, away from Isaac. Abraham lived for 175 years, and he died at a ripe old age, having lived long and satisfying life. He breathed his last and joined his ancestors in death. His sons Isaac, Ishmael, And Ishmael buried him in the cave at Machpelah near Mamre, in the field of Ephron, son of Zohar the Hittite. This was the field Abraham had purchased from the Hittites and where he had buried his wife Sarah. After Abraham's death, God blessed his son Isaac, who settled near Beer Lahai Roy in the Negev. So this is decades after the death of Sarah, and he's put back in the place that he bought, not borrowed, but bought.
So was his wife from the land he didn't want his son's wife to come from?
Say that one more time.
Abraham's wife, was she from the land where he was, where he didn't want his son's wife to come from?
No, Abraham's wife Sarah was,
No,
The second one.
oh, the second one. I don't know where she was from. I'm gonna guess because he was so careful that Isaac not marry a Canaanite that he wouldn't have either.
Okay, I was just curious,
Yeah.
because it didn't say, so I was just wondering.
Yeah, it's a good question though. You don't want to start to do as I say, not as I do stuff, right?
Exactly.
This is the account of the family of Ishmael, the son of Abraham through Hagar. I like this, lest we forget him and his mom, who was so blessed that God saw her. They're still part of this salvation story. Here's a list by their names and clans of Ishmael's descendants. The oldest was Neboleth, followed by Kedar, Adbeel, Mibshem, Mishma, Duma, Massa, Hadad, I like that, Hadad, Tema, Jetur, Naphish, and Kedema. These 12 sons of Ishmael became the founders of the 12 tribes named after them, listed according to the places they settled and camped. Ishmael lived for 137 years, then he breathed his last and joined his ancestors in death. Ishmael's descendants occupied the regions of Havilah to Shur, which is east of Egypt, in the direction of Ashur. There they lived in open hostility toward all their relatives, which is exactly what was said about Ishmael when he was born, that he would be wild as a donkey and be in open hostility, and that's exactly the legacy he left, and his family picked it up and ran with it. Case in point, most of our children are grown and gone. Be careful when you have little children, huh? No, you can leave it on. I'm not gonna say anything too rude. I do appreciate it. No, but be careful. Like I mentioned, when Lot moved to Sodom and Gomorrah, he put his family in a dangerous place to be. Right there in the midst of all that wickedness. And so when it came time to leave, remember his sons-in-law laughed at him. It was like, you're kidding. Who's this God you're all of a sudden talking about? You leave a legacy. Now, thanks be to the grace of God, parents who do make mistakes can redeem that mistake by being honest with their kids. I'll give you an example. When James was young, Diana was off somewhere and I'm babysitting the kids. And something happened and I ended up, Amanda came crying to me, and as a dad, you're crying, you're not, you must be the guilty one over here. I punished James for it, come to find out later that Amanda had injured herself. He had nothing to do with it. It happened on a Saturday. And I apologized to my son and asked forgiveness and told him, your dad's gonna make mistakes. Well, coming out of church, Diana was sitting in the back. James is standing in the back pew greeting everybody before they get to me. And guess what he's telling them? My dad makes mistakes. My dad makes mistakes. And I was not a surprise person in the church. But it was a great teaching moment because you're gonna make mistakes. Be honest about it. Ask forgiveness for it because you're going to. You know, hindsight is a great teacher, right? I wish I was as smart as I am now when I had kids. I was a stupid 6-year-old when James was born, right? Yeah, 86, 26. Yeah, I bet 26. I didn't know anything. I married a super mom, so she made up for it all. But just be careful, because you see the legacy of it. So when we get to the commandments, you're going to see at the close of the commandments, God pronounces blessings upon generation after generation of those who follow him, and curses on generation and generation of those who choose to walk away from it. It's not that he's decreeing that to happen. He's just saying this is what's going to happen. If grandma and grandpa walk away from the Lord early on, they're not going to teach their kids about the Lord, who are not going to teach the grandkids about the Lord, who are not going to teach the great-grandkids about the Lord. And you see how it goes from generation to generation. But he also pronounces blessings on grandma and grandpa who do take care to tell their kids, who tell their grandkids, who tell the great-grandkids. That's the legacy of faith. Some of us may have been born into that legacy of faith. Some of us may have been rescued later by the grace of God from the path that we were on. He set a new one. But it's important. And that's why I think the role of grandparents should never be underestimated. Being a grandparent is fun, because you can fill them with M&Ms and send them home. That's the fun part. But you're also there because the grandkids will listen to you and have fun with you that they may not with their parents. My grandsons look at me like I'm a big teddy bear to play with, and I love it, because that's my role. Diana comes by and fixes it all. I go out there and we have fun and say things I shouldn't have said in front of them, which is a great opportunity to ask for forgiveness. But it's just part of that great legacy of faith. I can't wait to see what it's like to be a great granddad. We are at the end of our time. We'll pick up next week with Esau and Jacob and see the fight that those two guys get in that lasts a lifetime. So what takeaways can we have from the lessons that were in front of us today? What did we learn that we can live?
Be in prayer boldly.
Pray boldly.
Trust in the Lord. He's gonna provide.
Yeah.
Found the right person.
And he answers prayers. Sometimes exactly what you ask for. He's always faithful, isn't he? I love the little details of the story. Not only is she going to give a drink of water, but water the camels. What if she just watered, give him a drink? That would have been enough, right? But not. It's not what he prayed for. And God gave him exactly what he asked for. And it's those little details are important. What's interesting, if you trace little details into the life of Jesus, why Bethlehem? Mary's town? No, actually, he had said before through Zechariah that he'd be born in Bethlehem. And why the detail about the cross? We're told that, well, Isaiah chapter 53, basically 730 years before Jesus was born, lays out what the crucifixion would be. Just look at the little details, the little prophecies that are fulfilled in the life of Christ. It just speaks again to the faithfulness of God. Okay? Good weeks. I have my eye surgery in the morning, but I should be fine by next week. So I'll be.
Cataract or something else.
I have a scar tissue. They're going to go in and take a spatula and scrape it off. That's how he described it. That's what I was thinking. I'm thinking of my little griddle thing. He did say it would be painful, and pain and I are not friends. So.